Hello there, I'm Suparna Goswami. I'm Associate Editor with Information Security Media Group. The topic of AI is no stranger to the cybersecurity community, and with the advent of Chat GPT that has caught everyone's attention, questions like if it can be leveraged by the cybersecurity community is being raised. But before we go and answer that question, let us see what are the challenges in deployment of AI and what are the gaps. We have a wonderful panel to discuss this further. To discuss this topic further, I have a wonderful set of panel. Please join me in welcoming Zaid Hamzah, who is Executive Education Fellow at National University of Singapore, Casey Wong, who is Director Product Development with Focus Digitech, and Hardeep Arora, who is Director Head of Engineering at Temus. Glad to have you all with me. Thank you so much for joining. So Zaid, let me start with you here. We have been talking about AI for so many years now, in the cybersecurity industry or in other industries as well. So what do you think as the bigger picture issues and challenges for the deployment of AI ML for cybersecurity community today?
I think you can look at it at three levels. The first one is strategic. Second is tactical. Then lastly, at the operational or administrative level. I think the biggest challenge we face today is how to be ahead of the curve. How do we remain vigilant in an environment where the adversaries and the bad guys may have an advantage over us? So I think the biggest challenge for us in the industry is, given the fact that AI machine learning is a double-edged sword. What is the precise balance of power that we see today between the attackers and the defenders? So our biggest challenge is, how do we stay ahead of the curve so that we can continue to create a much safer and more secure environment? And if the adversaries have the upper hand, then we would be in deep trouble. So I think this is one of the big picture issues at the geostrategic level, right? Then, of course, at the tactical level, you have issues such as lack of data, difficulty in ensuring explainability and interpretability, and so on and so forth. So these issues would continue to crop up as a challenge. Then lastly, at the operational and tactical level, I think we are moving far ahead in the area of automation. I think the faster we can help automate, right, either to predict, right, and then to provide quick remedies in the real-time sense when you're under attack, I think that will be quite critical.
Sure. So when we are in the challenges part, so Hardeep, let me ask you now. So Zaid did mention that one of the challenges is how do we stay ahead of the adversaries? Now, specifically in the context of banks and financial institutions, what are the unique sectoral issues that you have seen in the deployment of AI and ML for cybersecurity?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Suparna. Yeah, specifically for banks, I think the biggest issue I see is banks are regulated entities, right? So they are limited by the free will they get in use of technology, and specifically AI as well, right? Privacy is a big concern in banks. So using AI-powered tools, you have to be very careful. So simple cases like if you have to use natural language processing, right, for analyzing employee and customer data, this could be very sensitive in a bank, right? Because of the privacy concerns and because of the regulations they are under. Another issue I see generally is the education in terms of user education and employee education in the use of this advanced technology. Now, we have seen so many cyber attacks happening where the end user comes under the attack. And even if you have deployed an AI system, these users are tricked by the attackers and they kind of give away their login credentials, right? The third issue which I've seen is around a weak technology and data foundation. Now, banks are inherently very complex. There is a lot of systems within the bank, and a lot of these systems are legacy. So you have issues where you have to integrate the newer models or the newer technology into these legacy systems, and that could be very challenging as well. Other issues are like, which are more generic again, which are like adversarial attacks. So if you are exposing any AI kind of systems to the customer facing side, there is always a chance where attackers can manipulate and induce or manipulate in a way that the model can leak any kind of data. And then in the end, like the issues which Zayed already mentioned about data shortage, talent shortage, and explainability are all there as well in banking.
Fantastic, Hardeep. So, see, as Hardeep mentioned, banks specifically have a few challenges with regards to AI deployment, when it comes to, especially when it comes to privacy, when it comes to your legacy infrastructure and weak data foundation. So, let me ask you, as someone who is deep in SIM, what challenges do you see in modeling massive amounts of data for the purpose of deploying machine learning more effectively?
Well, I think in our experience, most of the time it's in the data collection. I think in the whole industry, data is not really synchronized. So, fact that everyone comes to us with different kinds of data, different formats. So a lot of time is first getting the data right. Once it's right, it's passed into our SIEM. And then that's where you can really get it to do its work, whereby you can then process it correctly. And hence using AI and ML, right? You can then use that data for learning, supervision, or unsupervised learning. All this, it's all data is really the crux of it. And I guess this expands to every industry as well. So long as there is a clean set of data and we have strong data scientists who are able to help assist that, I think the machine learning and AI future is going to be very strong.
Sure. So talking about the challenges, we did mention, all of you mentioned about the various challenges. So looking ahead, what should be our strategic priorities in a cyber risk environment that will continue to be increasingly complex? It will continue to be increasingly challenging. So I would direct this question to all of you. Zaid, maybe you would want to start here.
Okay, I think, again, if you look at it across three levels, right? The strategic, the tactical, and then lastly, what I call the operational level, you would see different challenges, and therefore our priorities must match those challenges. Now, in a typical scenario, you're addressing three basic risk exposure, right? Before the attack, during the attack, and then after the attack. Now, if you look at the strategic level, the way I see it personally as well as professionally, our priority must be given to having a really proactive threat intelligence environment. So the more we are able to share, right, threat intelligence in advance, the more prepared we will be. So I think this is a major area of priority that we need to address, because every single second, right, we are under attack, right? That is a given. But the big one, the more advanced, the more persistent, the more complex strategic threat, that's a bit more difficult to deal with. Now, so the priority, I think, for us moving forward would be, how do we develop greater proactive threat intelligence? And there's only one way, there's only a few things that we will need to do collectively. First, we will need to give priority to intelligence sharing, right? There has to be strategic collaboration between governments, industry, including universities. Then thirdly, I think if we can sharpen our data sharing, including our model sharing, especially our trained model sharing, it would lead to an optimization of resources. So at the end of the day, if we ask ourselves this question, what should our priority be? My answer will be the same, which is we have to focus on cyber threat intelligence in order for us to stay ahead of the curve. If we lose the initiative and the bad guys and the bad hat uh, do better than us, then we will reach a very critical risk inflection point. And I think that's something we must avoid. So the priority, therefore, is to enhance threat intelligence, sharpen greater collaboration between us, and really optimize our limited resources in our fight against the adversaries.
Sure, sir. Thank you. So, Casey, yes, of course, we have been talking about prioritizing threat intelligence sharing for many years now. So, where do you see are the gaps here? Why is that as industry we are not able to collectively share the data? Is it primarily the privacy concerns that we have? And also, what do you think should be the strategic priorities going forward?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of multitude of factors, right? Because for data to be good, it has to come from as many sources as possible, as varied as possible as well. And as we traverse this path of variety, right, therein comes a problem. You are talking to many parties who wear different hats, who have different responsibilities, different concerns, different geographical regions, different industries. And all of them have their valid concerns as well. Data privacy, I think, obviously being the leading factor as well. But of course, there are ways to anonymize data effectively these days at the same time. So there are solutions, just that you typically need all these parties to sit down, agree. It's like akin to any standard that anyone's setting in the world. You need all the different various heads to sit down, agree, align, so that once everyone's agreed on that, the standard is formed, then everything is nicely sanitized and in a manner that is good for receiving and sharing at the same time. Yeah. So I think in a nutshell, this problem will be always there. And as we keep changing in terms of data formats, what kind of new information comes in, we need to have a consolidated and agreed view on how we are going to consolidate this data in the first place. And secondly, how are we going to share it? And at the same time, protecting the people who are sharing at the same, so that there is overall, there's a gain for the industry. So yeah, I mean, there are a few major challenges I see moving forward.
Sure. Hardeep, anything that you would like to share here aside from intelligence data sharing, what else can be done?
Yeah, so I like to give a different color to this data sharing, or a little more color. So in my past life, when I used to work for an AI product company, we were talking about this concept of data trust, right? So data trust is basically a separate legal entity whose fiduciary duties are towards the providers of data, and they safeguard the usage of data, right? So I think as the industry collaboration increases, there is a need to look at such things called data trust, wherein you can formulate separate entities which can collect data from different institutions or different parties, and then make sure that that data is used responsibly and for the right reasons. This kind of alleviates some of those privacy concerns that we have highlighted earlier. I think that could be one of the things which should be looked at as well.
Sure.
Suparna, if I can add on, right? Now, if you look at it across the three planes, that three levels that I mentioned, right? Strategic, tactical, and operational, you will find that at the strategic or even at the tactical level, data privacy issues are never the difficult issues. Most countries already have enacted, right, robust privacy and personal data protection laws and regulation. But in the threat environment that we're in, right, it is clearly one of the issues that has to be addressed. But to put it in context, it's not a major, critical issue. Because when you address the kind of strategic risk that we are facing, right, today, at this very moment when attacks are becoming far more complex across vast attack surface, I think in that context, you will see that data privacy issues, while important, does not command such a high risk in the context of the larger issue that we are facing.
Absolutely. Then why do you think we are not able to share as industry? What would be your thoughts? One school of thought is, of course, the privacy, which, in my opinion, also, and as you said, does not hold that great importance when it comes to threat intelligence sharing per se. So, what could be the other reasons?
Okay, every country has got every country and every jurisdiction, right, and every society behave differently towards the concept of data privacy or personal data protection. For example, in China, the approach will be quite different from, say, in the EU or in the US. But what everyone agrees right now is, as we embark on any AI machine learning initiative, it has to be addressed because it is a requirement. So if you look at the importance of the critical importance of complying with AI ethics, privacy, data security is definitely one, right, of the key areas. So even though it is an administrative issue, it doesn't have the kind of strategic risk uh, exposure, right? It's something that we will need to address. As far as I am aware, right, across different markets, the desire to share data in a trusted manner for countries to collaborate with each other are already in place. So, for example, Singapore has got digital economy collaboration with many European countries, many Asian countries. So when we have data sharing arrangement where it creates data trust, eventually the problem would sort out by itself. So I think just to put in context, there are already, it's not a critical uh, risk exposure issue, but it is still very important, and steps are already being taken across multiple jurisdictions to address this.
Fantastic. Hopefully, something soon comes out. But finally, the question which is debatable: do you sense that our adversaries maybe better be able to use AI as a tool in their arsenal for cyber attacks? So, Hardeep, would you want to go first here?
Sure. Yeah. So I feel this is a cat and mouse game, right? Like every time a new piece of technology comes, the adversaries learn to create new attack vectors out of it, and then the defenders try to follow up, right? And similarly, like initially we were talking about Chat GPT, right? Like it's a generative model, it can generate different, different form of text which is very convincing. So obviously it gives a tool to the attackers so that they can generate more convincing phishing attacks or phishing email, right? Now at the same time, the research is also catching up. I think a couple of days back when I heard was OpenAI is also going to release something which is going to help you detect if the model has that, if the particular piece of text has been generated by a model, right? So I always feel that this is kind of a cat and mouse game, and then when a new technology come, a new attack vectors come, immediately there will be like people who will be looking at how do you stop the adverse usage of that technology as well, right? So probably this is the kind of a fine balance, and as long as the defenders are not left very far behind the attackers, I think this equilibrium should maintain.
Excellent. Zaid, what are your thoughts here?
It's and I agree with Hardeep's comment, right? It's a cat and mouse game. And unfortunately for us, the human behaviors will not change. The bad guys will always be there, right? So in trying to maintain this balance of power, I think we don't have a choice. Accept the environment as is, in the same way that we accept that there will be no such thing as 100% cybersecurity, right? Accept that behaviors and adversaries and bad actors will continue. Then the challenge for us is to continue to ensure that we are ahead of the curve, right? So the balance of power may shift. It depends, right? Because the level of access that the bad actors have compared to the good actors may be different. But if my own personal experience is anything to go by, most people are good, right? There will be a minority who are evil in their outlook, right? Who would try to destroy society as do it. So for me, is there a possibility that our adversaries may be able to use AI better than us? if we accept that as a reality, it is good for us. So let's work on the basis that they will always be better than us. And then we would then have to just try to do better to ensure that, in the final balance of power, we can do a better job. And that's something that's probably just going to be an ongoing battle.
So, but do you think that the complexities that we have, the lengthy processes that we follow, the cyber defenders, that also acts as a roadblock? And often because adversaries who really don't have that lengthy a process to follow, they will deploy something as soon as they create something.
Yeah, that's very true, actually, right? Like, if you are an attacker, you would just take the first technology, hack your way through it, and then start attacking already, right? When you're deploying enterprise grade systems to defend, you have to follow a lot of compliance. You have to follow by all the standards, enterprise grade standards. So that obviously is a burden. But as Zaid already mentioned, like, we should be prepared. We should accept that, so that we are constantly putting those efforts, right? There should be enough investment in this area within the community and within the organization, so that they are always trying to keep up and making sure that they kind of have a balancing act. Another thing that could be done again is that with some of these research houses like OpenAI and DeepMind and others, whenever they're coming with new technology, right? So there could be a industry level tie-ups with them as well, right? So which we call a safe release of new technology, right? So when they release any kind of a new model like ChatGPT, what are the various checklists that you can follow, right? Like, what are the various safeguards they can put in place? So we shouldn't be reckless in release of such powerful models. And maybe once the industry comes together and creates a framework around it, maybe there is a cybersecurity framework that needs to be created, and then that needs to be shared and partnered with some of those AI research houses as well, so that they are also aware of some of the mal uses of these models, and they can preempt to make sure that some safeguards are put in place before these models become widely available.
True.
Yeah, but maybe let me put a different angle to it also. When we look at cyber threats in general these days, right? I guess AI is to us at least, right? It's not as ominous or as evil as we look at it. Or rather, AI is as smart as the human people who program it. So if you are a malware coder, right, nowadays, you will realize that while ChatGPT is kind of fun and interesting, it doesn't really help you as a professional malware coder because you are here trying to game the system. You're trying to find new ways to attack the network, for example, infiltrate a network. So you have to think beyond the rule sets, which the AI is constrained by. So AI is only operating on the rules that the people set upon it. So a lot of times, we try to code some malware as well, right, using ChatGPT. We think it looks like a good code, but when you try to compile and execute it, you generally need someone who's got real malware or coding experience at least, right, to troubleshoot, debug it. So it is a challenging journey, even if you're ChatGPT helping you, because ChatGPT is an NLP language, right? It just pulls in disparate sources of information, puts it together as best as it can, and because code is just code, right? It doesn't know that this code that pulled together, can it be executed or not? It just gives you a bunch of code, which in general, I think generally makes sense. But if you try to execute it and debug it, then that's a whole different ballgame altogether. Yeah. So I think in this sense, in my view, I think at least from the top state national actors, right, who are the real threats we're talking about most of the time, this ChatGPT thing doesn't really help them all that much. But on the converse side, if you are a script kiddie, for example, and you're just trying to find, simple ways to hack a neighbor or just having fun with hacking, this could be a problem because now they have better access to all these kind of hacking tools, so to speak. They can generate code, simple code, easier. And so this presents a different kind of a shift in the cyber defenders, right? While you still are defending against national state actors, you now have probably more script kiddies coming onto the picture. So you also need to defend against them as well. But thankfully, they are not so hard to defend against. And in a way, AI is also helping to detect malware better as well, do better network detection as well. So we do have an upper edge, I think, at least for time being. Yeah.
Sure. But Casey, before we close, what would be your view? Do you sense that our adversaries may be better able to use AI as a tool?
Well, to be honest, it's very hard to say that definitively this attacker has used AI or not. You typically only see the results of it. Have your data been exfiltrated and has it been sold on the dark web or something like that? But in general, I think attackers and defenders face the same common issue, right? They need a lot of data in order to attack us properly. We also, at the same time, need a lot of data to defend ourselves at the same time. So I think if you ask me to take a controversial view on it, I think the defenders are actually better equipped at AI at this point, simply because we have a lot of information available to us every single day, be it open source or purchased. So we still have some advantage. The attackers, like what Hardeep was saying, they don't have rules, right? They just try to attack you any way they can. So they don't really need AI all that much, to be honest. They just need to have a good angle and exploit the angle out of it, and that's all they are looking at. So in a way, I think AI helps defenders a little bit more than attackers at this stage, at least. Yeah.
Well, let's see what the future holds for us and what the future of ChatGPT holds for us. But in the meantime, thank you, Zaid, thank you, Casey and Hardeep, for sharing your thoughts on what are the major challenges for defenders when it comes to deploying AI and what is the road ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. It was
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.